So I just learned a new trick about my phone. If you hit the volume up button, that apparently starts the video. Did not know that. This might be a little disjointed. That's the word. Apparently, band is practicing. I did not go to the school that was closest to me on account of the light situation being all kind of goofy here lately. And it's kind of, it's 8:09 now, so it's like gonna be dark soon, probably before the video's done again. I'm pretty confident the parking lot I ended up in isn't going to be better off for the lighting, because there's the baseball field and tennis courts over here, and I don't know that they have those lit up if there's not an event. So we'll find out. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear band all throughout this. Maybe. But whatever, it is what it is. Where to start? The other day, I was messing around on Instagram a little bit, and there were one of the pages that I follow, one of the former pastor pages, in the comments section, somebody made the comment about everybody has masculine and feminine energies within them, blah, 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 the stuff I talk about a lot on here. And there was this conversation where, the people that responded to that comment were kind of shitty. Especially in the thread that they started right immediately beneath that comment, where they're talking about how, that's a red flag, and everything is one thing, and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So I did comment, both from the understanding of what she was talking about, and through I don't remember what I said on that end. But then on the other one, I said, but why is it wrong to use the language that is currently in place as a means of helping others to understand, or to come to understand something more yourself? So then I was thinking about, the masculine and feminine energies on everything, right? And I was thinking about the idea that the right side of the body is the masculine side of the body, and the left side is the feminine. And then I'm thinking about, if you stretch your arms out, ideally you have both a left and right hand, right? But if you stretch them out, it's like, the tip of your left finger would be like the most feminine point, right? And this is just for processing and understanding sake. This is what my brain was going through. So then, at the same time, the middle finger on my right hand would be symbolic of the most masculine point, right? And just to serve the purpose of they're not the same hand, and there's lots of, there's some differences there, right? So it's like the most extreme, most distant, probably be better, point from one end to the other as my arms are outstretched, right? So I'm thinking I'm right-handed, so I cannot write with my left hand. It looks like chicken scratch. It's not pretty, right? So it's like, that is just, that's the way a lot of people are, but not everybody. So at the same time, while my left hand isn't very good for writing and stuff, I feel like in a way it's stronger, because when I'm carrying something that tends to be a little more on the heavy side, yeah, I have it in close to my body, but at the same time, if it's weight to be supported, I feel like I do that better on my left side. Right? It's like, I absolutely want both hands. Be unfortunate if I didn't have both of them, especially since I'm using them to learn things now. And I've noticed a lot when I'm skating that I can balance my weight on my left foot and have the toe of my right skate up and kind of use that to kind of guide me around. But I'm not real good at doing that on the other side. But I wouldn't be able to skate if I didn't have both feet. So it's like there are things that I can do one-sided that I can't do the other side. But then at the same time, both are necessary, and, both can work together very well to accomplish what I need them for. And I feel especially the thing that they were talking about is why I feel like, in the political realm of things, the blue side can't do anything either, right? So it's like, there's the red and there's the blue. So very right wing, very left wing, and it's like, nobody wants there to be anybody in the middle, but most of us fall in the middle somewhere, right? Very few of us fall on the far extremes. I've said for years, I am more liberal than conservative, but more conservative than liberal. And it's like, neither extreme, to me, is capable of telling the whole story or making a system that works for anybody except for the extremes. And they're always trying to force you into the extreme. But, if you say anything that's more middle of the road than, this or that, but somebody, because, okay, if you say something that sounds more along the line of the right, then the left is going to accuse you of, being all the glorious names that, they have for the right side. And then two, if you say anything that aligns more or sounds more left-leaning, then you're automatically a leftist, according to the right standards. And it's like, I've said several times on here that the current system does not work. The foundation that this nation was built on is not a good one, because they came in and, killed a bunch of people to take over their land, and then, give them a little, build a little line in the sand to show where they could go or where they couldn't go. And then, used people they stole from other lands for forced labor to build it. So that right there is not a good foundation to have a whole system built on. And yet it's what we got, right? But, everybody, I've seen so many people on social media here lately that are talking about what the Dems need to do to step up and all this shit. And it's like, the Dems aren't capable of handling what's happening any more than, the other side is. It's a system that where the left has largely enabled the right to get worse, right? Because there's no middle road option. It's this or that. And, so for the person that commented that gender is made up, or sex or whatever, whichever one it is, I never remember, and that we are all both, it's like, of course that doesn't work for everybody, because you're just trying to hijack the one thing that Okay, if we are all the same, why does not everybody have either a penis or a vagina? Or both, right? So there is the system there exists to acknowledge that there are some physical differences, and I feel like that's why anyone who's not fully right leaning but not fully left leaning struggles to to make sense of where they fit in this system, because there are clearly some things that are different. And how do you account for those if you're trying to just scrap it all and say it doesn't really exist? It's like, we wouldn't know light if there wasn't darkness to distinguish it from, right? There's clearly a separation. At one point in the daytime, the sun is up. At the other point, the moon is out. Technically, they're both out all the time anyway, like they're not really gone, but based on the light that we receive, we have either day or night, right? So to say that that difference isn't there at all sounds like we're just trying to brainwash people in the opposite direction, right? And I'm going to very much maintain we all have aspects of both within us, and that's why there is no one size fits all for everything. We can't force everything into one specific package and tell the other side that they're just wrong because they're believing it wrong and this whole thing's made up. It's all kind of made up, right? The whole the whole life thing is basically a big illusion, and we're trying to figure out, navigate our way through it. That doesn't mean it's not valid. So it's just, I just find it really frustrating that, one side's locked into this or that. And the other side seems to be locked into, not all of them. I know that's probably not everybody on that side viewpoint, but just like the way it came up and what it's allowed me to process through since then, it's like, well, that's why that doesn't work either, because there are clearly some things that are different. Like, you don't look at the night sky and say, this is all there is, because there's a whole daytime, right? Unless you're in one of those places that has like 6 months of day or night, and then, the other 6 months of the opposite. But even still, you still have the contrast, would just kind of suck for your system, I would think, for trying to sleep and all that crap, but whatever. But yeah, like to say that because it's this made-up construct that it doesn't exist, it exists because it's a way of explaining where the differences are, right? That's like the purpose of contrast, is so that, not everything is this way, right? Not everything is light, not everything is dark, not everything is good, not everything is bad, but even those are, who gets to say what's good or what's bad? But it's just like really, I'm going back to that, to the point I said, it's like the system that we have currently in place doesn't work, period. And the reason it was allowed to get as bad as it has is because they're trying to keep us locked in the extremes, right? And for the people that fall in the middle of the road, you can see that, yes, there are differences. But yes, I also believe that, like, there's more to it than that. It's like, to deny that there's any kind of difference seems a little silly, but like, the point of the differences is just to understand that, there are nuances, right? So, yeah, it's just, I don't know, something that's been kind of sitting with me past couple of days, I guess. But like like I can't say my left hand is the exact same as my right hand, because my right hand can write, my left hand can't do that. But my left side seems to be stronger for just holding my weight or holding whatever I'm doing. But that seems like it wouldn't make sense since I use the other side more, right? But yet, clearly it's not exactly the same, right? So it's like the extremes are just for the sake of contrast and for understanding that there are things that are different. But at the end of the day, we are all human, and we all have all of those contrasting aspects within us. We all have both the shadow and the light. We all have the capacity to do good or bad, and to say that it's just made up doesn't allow us to make sense of the things that are slightly different. But that doesn't mean we can't appreciate them for the contrast, right? But yet, it would seem like that is also demonized. Which, there again, is why this system doesn't work. You don't just take one thing and try, or like the thing one side's doing, and completely try to destroy it and, change everything all at once, because it's a whole fucking spectrum, right? So, I don't know. My hand's all stiff again. Yeah, these lights aren't coming on, so I'll probably have to move, but, I don't know, it's just, hopefully the band practice will be over soon, and I'll move that way. No idea what their music is. But yeah, like, anyway, going, like, back to that whole spectrum thing, like, okay, if you consider, like, stretch your arm out, right? All the way out there. Like, this whole, like, if your end, the end of your middle finger is, the furthest right point when you're reaching out that way, right? That doesn't negate the fact that this whole side is the right side. And there's lots of, it's a spectrum. Like, we all fall somewhere on the spectrum. But the endpoints, the contrasting aspects, are just a way of understanding the differences. That doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, we are all still human. That's where the one the thing comes from, right? But there's still the opposites for the contrast and for purposes of understanding things slightly different. Okay. I'm going to go here and hopefully not completely lose my light before I get it done. But we'll see. Anyway, last night I was thinking, I went to class, and I was thinking about, on the way home, I kind of wanted to talk to Annie for a while about, like, all the things that I've been, like, connections that I'm making with the twin flame thing, right? And I didn't get the chance to talk to her about much of it, but just me thinking about having the conversation, I was thinking about, just a lot of the different things that have happened. Like, okay, let me see if I can maintain a steady stream of thought on this and have organized thoughts, but we'll see. As with my storytelling, there's always the risk that I'm going to go on a tangent and forget to come back to the point. But sometimes that is the point. So we're going to roll with it. So, okay, earlier today I was thinking about the meditation that I did early on with the twin flame journey even, and I was in this, I was basically in what's now my office, was my bedroom at the time, and there was like this blue lighting, and the furniture was all different, and okay, so it's like aqua blue, so it's not like blue, but kind of the blue-green kind of a thing, right? So that's the lighting, and I'm in this space, and I see good old Horus, right? Dude with the falcon head in my space, right? And I look up, and I notice him, and then I look down, and there's this table in front of me, and there's an envelope on it that has my name on it. And obviously I open it because it's clearly addressed to me. And okay, so it was like this overwhelming energy of love, and I'm thinking on the paper it said like, soon my love, right? So it was just, those were little short simple message, but the feeling was kind of more substantial. Well, there's some kind of light over there, but that might just be where the sun's, I don't know. Anyway, it just looks lit up weird, and I didn't notice it a minute ago. But anyway, so Horus, obviously I have earrings. I've talked a lot about how hawks are important, and hawks have been a recurring theme in my whole journey. It's also kind of stuffy in here. I would like to roll a window down. But yeah, so hawks are important, and falcons are, same kind of family, right? Family of birds. And I had a video I did several weeks ago where I had a falcon that landed in front of the tree, or in the tree in front of me when I was doing a video, and I'm just kind of like, can I catch that before it leaves? And I did. And then another time I was doing a video, and the falcon landed in the tree right up over me, and I was like, I didn't have a chance to do anything, and then it was gone. It's like, but it was still kind of cool. But I've been having these weird experiences with hawks, and there's there was one day I decided to do something that I think was important for the twin flame path, and after having made the decision to do it, I went over to the cemetery to walk the dogs, and there were two, and they flew in opposite directions and kind of did a little flyby with each other, and it's like, that's pretty cool. But I was seeing them all the time for the longest time. There was a little bit of a gap where I didn't see them as much, but I'm starting to see them a lot more again. But yeah, so they've been really important, for a while. And if you go back to most of my videos, at some point, I've talked about hawks in them, right? So, hawks are important, right? I even had, Eklektik shelf, Wendy, she, made me custom hawk earrings and vulture earrings, and then of course I got a couple Horus, things. And, because I realized I love these two things, but I never saw any, hawks or vultures on earrings anywhere. And it's like, hey, could you make some of these? And she did. So it was like, hey. And obviously I wear them a lot. So, showed up to me in a meditation. And then there's just been a whole bunch of other points where it's been relevant. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the other parking lot and hopefully catch a light post before it's completely dark. Although, okay, some of those look like stadium lights. I don't know. Anyway, I'll be back. Okay, so that's not gonna work. I'm gonna hear everything. Anyway, we have another window cracked anyway. So I'm over by the field house now. It has a street light. The elementary school does not have any. So I don't know what that's all about. Like, the elementary schools aren't lit up anymore. It's like, different. But by the field house it is, and there's only one car over here, so I don't know if that's probably why. I don't know. Band practice is over, but there's still football shit going on, so who knows. Anyway, so Horus. Right, so meditation, and then just the appearance otherwise. And, there's just been like a really strong draw to Horus for various reasons. But, I've talked about, okay, and of course, the necklace thing too. So, the Eye of Horus, it's the left eye, right? So, makes sense with my, just the way I'm process of elimination or whatever else. If it's the left eye, then that's the feminine side, right? And it speaks to protection and healing, which is why I started wearing it largely. However, there is also the piece that since Horus became more important on my journey once I really started making sense of the twin flame stuff, it stood out to me that the Eye of Horus, being the left eye, looks like an R, right? And the Eye of Ra, it looks like a backwards R, right? But for the sake of the twin flame journey and trying to keep myself reminded, there's a car coming at me. Cool. That'll be the only annoying part about sitting in the spot. But because it looks like an R, and that's letter of his first name, to keep me moving forward on the twin flame process and making sure I don't wander like I always used to do. Like, I could talk myself out of anything, right? So I feel like that's a big part of why I made it to 40 before I started making sense of anything for myself, right? But because I've seen myself quit on like everything, I was like, well, this Horus figure keeps showing up. Hawks and falcons are really important. Speaking of which, last night at class, we were kind of focused on animals. And, so she had like 4 different card decks that were all animal decks. And I pulled 2 hawk cards from different decks. And then, when she also, like, she was teaching us about allowing the universe to guide us to which animals we can learn something, we have something to learn from right now. So she hands around this bag that has a bunch of animals on different pieces of paper, so we can, select a few and see what comes up, right? And of course, hawk was one of them. I pulled 4 pieces of paper. 2 said cat, 1 said crow, and the other said hawk. And it's like, because of course it does. So 3 times last night, I pulled something talking about hawks, right? And I wish I had the guidebooks for the 2 card decks that I pulled from, because I read them before I started the video, and it's like I feel like that's relevant information, but not information I'm going to remember and be able to explain again right now, right? So I'll have to write that down in my journal probably. And because I put everything in there. Because it helps me collect all my thoughts together in one space. That yes, somebody will eventually have access to if they want it. But for now, it's the journal. And so I wonder, okay, they're turning off the lights in the field house. I'm wondering if they're going to lose the lights in the parking lot too. Because that'd be cool. Although band practice is over, so theoretically I could go over there. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, so hawks show up 3 times last night. And, God, I had one day I pulled from the Animal Apothecary deck. I think there's been there's been multiple days. Some of these cards are recurring themes. Baby hawk, to nourish yourself while you wait, right? So, Baby hawk, the card talks about, he yearns for the day that he's going to be able to step into his greatness, right? But since he's not there yet, he still has to nourish himself to, be able to get there, right? Because if he doesn't eat and all that stuff, then he's not going to be strong enough to end up, nope, that didn't work. I just broke the flower. Oh, he won't, if he doesn't eat, he's not going to be able to get strong, or to be strong and grow, right? That, he just won't be able to do those things. So he has to do the things that are going to help him on his growing process, right? So, the point of the card is, it says to consider whether there are any skills or anything that your higher self has that you currently do not. Then it says, research and practice those things, and as you do, that makes it so you step into a higher level of, just a higher level of yourself. If it's something your higher self is able to do, starting to do the thing and practice the thing gets you to that point where you are closer to stepping into the highest version of yourself. So that's the point of that card. The one I pulled again today was a Falcon card, and it talks about victory. It talks about the importance of disciplining yourself to keep going on doing what needs to be done. So, for me, the YouTube thing, right? I have to make it a priority to go do my video, ideally have better lighting than I've had the past few days, but whatever, we still got light, so we're going to roll with it. Ouch. My finger's going to lock up again, and I wish I had a thing that would hold my phone so I didn't have to hold my phone, but I don't. So, and if I did, it wouldn't matter because this card doesn't hold on to them. We had one in the edge, and the other day it just flipped off at me. It's that's cool. But anyway. Oh no, that was the thing in here. That was the camera in here. Never mind. Forget that story. But anyway, yeah. So, right, so do the thing and keep moving into the, doing what you have to do to get to where you need to go, right? But there's other cards that have the hawk on them, and one of them, it's a lighthouse. The lighthouse, I don't remember. I know there's a hawk, there's a lighthouse, and the lighthouse is shining a light on the bee. And it's talking about focus on the end goal, and then, that's how you keep moving toward the thing that you want, right? So the highest timeline of me, whatever that would look like, keep that in focus and keep doing whatever I can do. The turtle card says small steps, big accomplishments, and it says do little things every day toward the goal, and eventually you'll have covered a lot of ground, right? So, yeah. Or you'll accomplish big things. Ooh, okay. Back to the steering wheel. Cool. Anyway, so last night, moving beyond the cards, the other day I had like, at least 3 of them, plus the vulture, plus turkey, which is gratitude. And it talks about, making it a practice to go through the stuff that you appreciate and expressing your gratitude for those things as a means of magnetizing even more things to you, right? Because through being grateful for them, universe responds to that, right? like even though I don't love living with my parents at 42 fucking years old, I am grateful that I was able to do that rather than stay stuck with my ex or, end up out on the street somewhere. At least I have a bed. And now it's a really comfy one too, since I got that switched out. But yeah, like those things. Anyway, so as I'm thinking about all these things last night, I was thinking about, okay, so when I see, okay, and we've talked about how, you see the numbers that, are somebody else thinking of you or somebody in spirit sending their thoughts to you, whatever, that kind of thing. It's somebody in spirit, whether alive or not, communicating that they are thinking about you in some way. Okay? Rough overview, very rough overview. So, I talked about the twin flame number a lot, and I've thought about how it's like, okay, so I see it the regular way a lot, but then I also see it in reverse. It's a 918, right? So at some point I started thinking, so if 819 is him, 918 is also him, but is it also me? Because I'm, like the other side of that coin, if you will, the other side of the mirror, whatever, that, we're connected. So it's like, is his number in reverse also reflective of me? And then I started thinking about that with, okay, so my birthday is July 9th, so 7-9 is kind of like a pat on the back for me, right? But then if I see that in reverse, is that like a call out to him in a way, because we're connected and all that fun stuff? Anyway, so I'm thinking about this stuff last night and how the fuck is that? It's probably killdeer. There's a bunch of those around here. So I'm thinking about that switch, right? Just if you flip it, is that, the other person in the connection. I saw his number just now. So anyway, so last night I'm thinking about things. And okay, so the other day I was driving down the road. And also worth noting, I feel like, okay, since I talk about how I collect data, and that's like the thing that I've been doing my entire life, is collecting data to see how things fit together, right? So, I've talked about his name being around me my entire life. I've talked about now realizing his birth date has been too. I just wasn't aware of it, previously. Like I had no reason to know that the reason I kept looking at the tombstone at the cemetery for the guy that died, I thought I kept looking at his gravestone because he, was basically my brother's age. He was born in January and my brother was born in December though, so not quite, but still, they were born in the same year, so I always kind of thought of my brother. Then I realized after the twin flame thing came up that his death date, the guy that had, whose tombstone I kept being drawn to, was a twin flame's birth date. Just like, that's weird. But then I started seeing everything from that lens. It's like, okay, well, that changes things. So now I'm seeing how I've, how even his birthday has been around me my entire life. And I didn't realize it. Well, that guy died in 2001. So at least since then, I've noticed that tombstone pretty regularly because I've walked my dogs over there for a lot of years, obviously. So the other day I was thinking about, it catches initials a lot too. And I've talked about how at one point when I was over at the cemetery walking the dogs, I randomly kind of posed the thought of what is his middle name. And the name that started grabbing my attention was Robert. And it's like, is that actually it? Because that's kind of, it's like I have no way of knowing this, but I could see how, if this is my intuition guiding me, I will accept that, but I want confirmation. And the confirmation that I wanted was, okay, so these would be his initials. So then I want to see this, I want to see it somewhere where it's so obviously a message for me, the three initials together. And, it's like whatever it is just grabs my attention. So it's clearly a message for me, a confirmation message. And as I was driving down the road, shortly after posing this thought of wanting this confirmation, I see those initials, or the three letters together in the middle of this. It was a brand of camper. And I was like, huh, okay. So that's interesting. And then I started seeing it everywhere and realizing that when I was with my ex, okay, first he had a truck when I met him. And he had that truck the entire time we were together. He also, shortly after we got together, he got a car that, the car is kind of irrelevant. But before we split up, he ended up with an SUV. And it was kind of one of those things where it was really aggravating for me because I wanted to use the tax check to fix the car that we already had in the driveway that was just parked because we couldn't do anything with it. And he wanted to buy a new vehicle. So since my opinion didn't actually matter in that situation, he bought a new vehicle with like a $550 a month car payment, which was ridiculous to me. It's like, because this is not just, the whole fucking tax check. This is like, that's still a huge ass monthly payment. But whatever, right? Because at that point I was kind of like, I always told my ex, it's like, do whatever the fuck you want because we both know you're going to anyway. It's like, what I have to say doesn't actually matter because you don't care what you want to do, you're going to do. And, so it's like, whatever, do whatever. Anyway, the truck that he had was actually the same brand as the camper that I saw these initials in that grabbed my attention. It was like, I'm driving down the road and there's a campground that I'm going past, and I haven't been this way in a while because that road was closed for construction for a long time. And I just happened to look over, and right there it is in the middle of the name of the camper. It's like, oh. So then I started thinking, well, that's the same name as the type of truck he drove. And so there again, and the SUV he ended up getting also had the three initials in it. And it's like, so what you're telling me is the entire time I was with him, because of course I've talked a few times about how the twin flame wordage came up in 2012, which was the year that I met my ex. And at that time, I thought it was something that, was referring to my connection with Tyler and just something that was not meant to ever come to fruition, right? So I just brushed it off and moved on. And the reason I was thinking Tyler at that time, of course, too, going back to the data that's been dancing around me in my life. So my ex's son was named Tyler. And I think the purpose of that was because I was supposed to reach out to Tyler in that time frame. So the kid essentially was a reminder that I needed to reach out to this friend, and I couldn't bring myself to do it, right? So this kid was in my life, and he was, I told him early on after I met him, one of the coolest people I ever knew, shared his name. So, yeah. So then for the twin flame thing to come up in that time frame, I just figured those two were connected. But then obviously all these years later, it, has panned out far different than that. Even though I still haven't met him yet. But yeah. So the other day I'm driving down the road and I've noticed that I'm starting to see the initials, whether it's the 3 or just 2, a lot. And I'm noticing how many different cars there are with these initials together in them. And it makes sense, really. But it did not. Anyway, yeah. So the other day, I'm noticing it. I'm pulling up on this truck that has 2 initials together in it. And then all at once, I'm thinking of Eye of Ra, right? And the Eye of Ra is the right eye, and I think it's more judgment, destruction kind of things. I never remember what all it is, but it's more the heavy-handed kind of stuff, right? So when I think of it now, I'm mainly thinking of destruction and judgment. And so I started thinking about that the other night. And then, as I'm coming back home, swimming through these thoughts recently, I have this thought of, like how Horus and Ra keep coming back, but specifically Horus, but also, because they're ultimately 2 parts of the same thing. One's the right eye, one's the left. I was just thinking about it, right? Like, I don't even know what to say on that other than it was making me think about it more. And so I'm thinking about if there's any kind of connection point to me in this whole thing, right? And y'all, the dumbest, it's not dumb at all, but yet at the same time, I kind of felt silly that I hadn't really caught on. Like, it was always there, and I feel like I was always vaguely aware of it, but didn't really grasp it. And last night, I was like, oh, all right, so what do I have in common with this other thing, right? So this Horus. And as I'm thinking through that, what comes to mind is switching the numbers, right? See the numbers in reverse, but they still are relevant for the same thing. And then I'm thinking about my name. And I realize that what Sarah and Horus have in common is, if you write them out and scratch the vowels, the consonants are the same, right? Just reversed. So SRH, HRS. It's like, huh. So then there's like this whole other layer to this thing that's like, well, that's kind of weird. So that was a whole thing. But then I was thinking about that last night, and then that makes me think that, okay, another thing that has also come up a lot lately is the story of Narcissus, right? So, where we get the word narcissist from, and was it Greek mythology, I think? He's this figure where nobody's good enough for him. None of his suitors, can get his attention or whatever. And he ends up falling in love with his own reflection in like this pool of water or something, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking, well, I'm just Narcissus has been kind of a big theme in my life since, my grandfather, my mother, my ex-husband, the big ones, right? So it's like, it's been kind of a theme. Apparently, the elementary lights just came on, so I could go over there if I get tired of these cars driving past me. The other day, and see, this is the thing. I don't know if I heard it somewhere in my waking life, or if it was something that was presented to me in a dream, or what. But I heard somewhere the idea that Narcissus was a twin flame, and his twin died. I don't think it said flame necessarily. He was a twin, and his twin died, and he got basically caught up in staring at his reflection because he was looking for a sign of his twin, right? But that makes perfect sense with the idea of the twin flame thing, right? And I've talked a lot about the yin yang, right? So, and there's a piece of the light in the dark. There's a piece of the dark in the light. And I've talked about that, like, on my twin flame path, with connecting to the masculine aspect of myself. Turns out that's my heart space, and my Venus in Leo, and it's like, once, like, I kind of settled in on that idea early on in this journey, I started thinking about if his Venus is in Cancer, because, that would make sense for me, since my Venus is in Leo and I have all these freaking Cancer placements. To me, I can make that make sense, where since he's a Leo, his Venus would be in Cancer, and it would be a sort of reflection of that idea. Does it have to be the case? Absolutely not. But it's something that I've been kind of thinking through. And of course, there are, 12 signs of the zodiac, so how much of this stuff can, all come together to support my weird, crazy connections and the weird shit that I'm learning and processing through. But anyway, early on, because I started trying to, the purpose of the twin flame path is to unify the aspects within yourself first. And, I've talked a lot about how I've always, I always was overly identifying with the feminine aspect of myself, and, what the world was conditioning me to believe about what it meant to, be a female in this physical earth space or whatever. And, once I started, I had to do some healing in that space too, because there's so much of that distortion and being caught up in the conditioning and buying into the bullshit that people taught me along the way, like, especially that I picked up from religion and all that. So one of the things I had to do was, as I started following this twin flame thing, I realized that I had to start speaking from my heart more and allowing my heart to lead the way more. And then I realized that it's like, that's essentially the masculine aspect of myself. That's where I've carried him my entire life, right? But it's a part of me. So completely separate from this person that, just got his own thing going on anyway. So if I'm this dark piece right here, there's still a piece of the colored part too, right? So that being the him spot. And, and there too, for the opposite end of that scenario. Or complementary, if you will, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so I was thinking about that stuff too. And then, like that was a big part of, I had to start the YouTube thing. I had to start taking action for myself to try to change things for the existence that I'm in, rather than just accepting that, as a girl, I'm supposed to have all these things that, goes one way, except, I divorced myself from the idea as well that I'm anybody's goddamn property. Even though for a long time I bought into that bullshit, where your father's property until your husband's property and all that bullshit, right? But then when I realized that my father let me marry a fucking douchebag that he didn't even like, it was like I picked the worst I could find, and I knew you wouldn't like him because I needed you to tell me it was okay not to marry him. But then you didn't. So then I felt like I was obligated to marry him. Right? So, and then I felt stuck because of all the church conditioning and all, the bullshit my dad was watching. Because shit, I moved back home in 2019. And I can think of at least 3 times that my dad had some asshole pastor on the TV talking, and he's spouting off about how terrible divorce is. It's like, no, divorce is what happens when you end up stuck with somebody you never should have been with in the first place, and finally allow yourself to get out of it because you will no longer tolerate how crappy they treat you. And that was the biggest thing, is because of what I believed about myself, because of my family. That was why I thought that guy was, what I was stuck with. So it's like somehow doomed to end up with this kind of douche, because in a lot of ways he was just like the douche that was my grandfather. And so I felt stuck. So I know, I'm not saying divorce is something you should strive for. I'm saying if you're fucking stuck, you can get out of it and it's perfectly okay. The world is not going to end. There are a lot of things that are very difficult, and, that I still, go back to that kicking myself over having gotten into that situation to begin with, because it's so freaking irritating, and like the name. So I marry the guy, take on his name, because Jones was this big nightmare, right? I just, Jones is so bland, and I know I'm not meant to be a Jones forever. I'm too colorful to do that. The bigger thing was when I went into basic training and my name was Jones, they still kept calling me the wrong name because it's like it never matched. It's like something about me speaks to that point of that the name's kind of too small for what I'm meant to do and who I'm meant to be in the world. But, it was one of those things. It's like I was a little too eager to dump the name and take on the other name. But then it became a pain in the ass because, okay, like Nelnet, who I have a lot of my student loans from, I went through all these hoops to get my name changed, and they changed it for like 30 seconds. And something happened. I don't know if there was like a glitch in their system or whatever, but they lost all the freaking paperwork that I had sent them to fix the name, and it reverted back to the other name, the married name. It's like, what in the fuck? There's a lot of people leaving now. So yeah, and I was jumping through all sorts of hoops in 2019 to get that gone, and now it's back, so it's like, yeah. And I still occasionally will get things addressed to the other name. It's like, stop it. This person doesn't exist anymore. And like, there's a freaking, I've talked about the fucking collection agency that, you know, I was paying on this stupid thing, and somewhere along the line it like fell off, and so they start calling me again. It's like, I'm not the one that made this thing go away. But then once it did, it's like every time I answer the phone and they're asking for the other name, it's like, no, that person doesn't exist anymore, and I've told you that before, but since you can't change it, they had no problem changing it when I told them I got married. But when I told them that I got divorced, for some reason, it was this big, complicated issue. So you know what? I'm not that person. So keep calling if you want. I just never answer my phone now. So yeah, there's that. Probably also not real helpful, because now like everything, it comes up potential spam. Anyway, it's like, I don't know if it's that or if it's anything else, but I don't answer my phone. If it's important enough, they'll leave a message. And don't you know, they never do. Anyway, back to the Narcissus thing. Right, so like when I had that thought, it's like, well, that changes everything. If he had a twin and the twin died, so he got lost in looking in his own reflection to find his twin there. It's like, but that kind of actually makes sense. And especially with the, going back to the, okay, so that story, the idea of Narcissus was a dude, right? So I'm thinking about, like the raw side being destruction and judgment. So it's like the patriarchal structures devoid of the feminine leads to narcissism, and also a whole lot of judgment and destruction and like the stuff that's going on in the country right now, right? A whole bunch of bullshit. Right? So, and it's, I think it's pretty safe to look at various things in a worldview and see how patriarchal systems have fucked things up. And that's not because the masculine is bad by any means. But when the masculine is disconnected from the feminine aspect, which there again, the masculine rules over the bottom three chakras, the root, sacral, and solar plexus, that has to deal with safety and security, sexuality, creativity, and self-expression, right? So the thing that immediately comes to mind is like the dudes that want to run around claiming to be alpha males. It's like, dude, there ain't nothing alpha about you, and congratulations on being firmly locked into the male loneliness epidemic, because not a damn person's gonna want to interact with that, right? No woman's going to want to be locked into a situation with that kind of toxicity, and that's what it is. But especially when you look at the elected penis, who's there simply because he because of the assumption that he has one anyway, right? Even though I guess South Park, makes fun of him. I haven't watched South Park in a long time, but I did see the little thing that they did about that. So anyway, still kind of think it's fitting. It's like the bigger the mouth, the smaller the dick. I don't know. The more they're spouting off about shit that, and I was watching something earlier that was talking about all the people under the current administration who have been at very least accused of rape or sexually assaulting people. And it's like, that's a, and like the freaking Christian nationalist bullshit thing that is trying to force its way everywhere. Locked in with that's patriarchy, locked in with the destruction and, judgment thing. It's like, and trying to take away reproductive rights of women and, healthcare for women, right? They want to go back to the fucking nightmare existence where there's only male doctors because women are supposed to be pregnant and barefoot and pregnant in the house, right? But anyway, so thinking about unifying the aspects of myself, right? So I had to find my voice, had to find my ability to start making moves for myself, because I was realizing nobody's going to do it for me, even though everything in my life was telling me that I had to rely on somebody else to essentially do it for me and to make me a worthwhile person, right? But relying on anybody else for anything doesn't do anything except for diminish your value as a person in their eyes. It's not that it that it devalues your actual worth. It's that they devalue you and you accept that because that's what you've been conditioned to do. And that's bullshit. But there again, that's why I came from the family that I did. Because, I've lived this experience and realizing that this is why, all of this has happened is for the sake of teaching me these lessons and for showing me the live demonstration of what this path eventually leads to and why it is essential to have the balance, right? Going back to what I was talking about before. It's like, okay, going back to like the hand thing. If, there's only so much writing I want to do at any given time before my hand starts, to fall asleep or to hurt. So I don't want my right hand trying to do everything all the time because, fuck, that leads to other problems anyway. I know my mom's always been big on the idea of like carpal tunnel and all this stuff. And it's like, I know when I was, playing percussion all the time, my wrists were sore a lot because of the motion and usage. But, it's like still necessary for what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, my right hand can't do everything. My left hand can't do everything. I need the balance of them, right? So that's like a big part of like what the whole thing is about anyway. And, without the Horus side, Ra is more focused on the destruction aspects and the judgment aspects, right? So the masculine without the feminine is kind of harsh and no good. I heard something a while back. Somebody was talking about or wanting to say that it was one of those posts that was trying to be complimentary of the support aspect and a healthy relationship dynamic where they support each other and together are like way more powerful or I don't know, better together kind of idea. And somebody was trying to shoot it down with, oh, that's just proof that she couldn't do anything without him. It's like, that's just proof you're stupid. It's like, see, piss off with that bullshit, man. Yeah, so, you know, devoid of the feminine, you end up with a freaking dictator, or wannabe, and, yeah. So that's why it's like essential right now that the feminine is finding her way back into power and not going to just allow the bullshit that's been allowed to step into place to continue to happen. Because, you know, I think we've all had some kind of experience with both sides of that and how it can be harmful. You know, like the idea of, you know, stripping away healthcare for women altogether. Because if you have honest, open conversations with your doctor, you know, you might be able to end a pregnancy or something with, you know, somebody who has no business having children, period, let alone, you know, you having to be stuck bringing that child into the world when you're not going to have a partner to share in the whole experience and the whole parenting thing, right? So it's like, you know, like all those unhealthy family dynamics where the mom's expected to do everything and the dad doesn't do jack shit for the family. It's like, Or like my grandfather, where, you know, he expects my grandmother to beat the daughters into doing the right thing, and thinks he's some kind of superhero because he felt like a bully hitting a little girl, so he made his wife do it. It's like, but you're still encouraging her to hit them, so you're still very much a part of the abuse. Which again is why the patriarchal systems want women stripped of being able to do the things and, you know, to have a voice, because we pull down those upper chakras and speak to issues and, you know, be able to have a sense of compassion and empathy, which, you know, Christian nationalists are trying to demonize. And, yeah. You know, and even that, like, I watched this video at one point where essentially brainwashed chick that was speaking to it was, it's like selective empathy. Empathizing over the Christian children who are harmed in any kind of way, but demonizing everything else. And demonizing the sense of empathy if it comes to having compassion for somebody, you know, like a different color from you or something. You know, but that goes back to this whole thing, and, you know, it's essentially a mirror of sorts. You know, what you, okay, going back to the left and the right, and how they say all these things about the opposite side and how terrible they are, but at the same time they're also projecting, because they don't accept anything where they might not be 100% in agreement with the side that they're arguing from, right? They just pretend that doesn't exist, right? So, like, I don't know. Game's over. don't even know if I addressed everything I was thinking about. And now my finger's locked up again. Sorry. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I haven't addressed. I'll go back and watch this and be like, oh, I forgot to say that, or oh, trailed off there again. That's what I do. Sorry, I'll get back to it at some point. I figure there's always a purpose for that too, though. It's like if I trail off on something and then I realize I never finished that story, that gives me a little more time to sit with it and maybe come up with even more thoughts on it. I don't know. But I guess I'll wrap this up. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.